Okay, gewaltig. Just test the sound. Oh, good morning, Marty. It was really, really beautiful last night. Namens knackt.
The one at the time says this is early.
Why?
We gave 15 minutes for the ropes.
He changed all the testing. Okay, we are good to go. Gewaltig. Okay. Did we get on to Ahmed Beis yesterday? Boy Minei, you have to finish right at the bottom. So Boy Minei, Rami Bar Chama Me'Rab Chisda. Rami Bar Chama asked the following shaila of Rab Chisda. Nitas al beged tome. What if dam from a chatos spritzed on a beged that was tome? Ma, what's the shaila? And Rashi elaborates. Nita al beged tome, v'nitpa b'nigiosabon. Simultaneously, as the dam hit the beged, the dam became tome. Now we know dam posel, such as dam tome, doesn't have the din of kibbutz. But here it became tome simultaneously as it stained the beged. So the shaila is miyav dam posel ki ilu nitma koidem lachein and then v'loy boy kibbutz. Do we say that we perceive it as if the dam was tome before it hit the beged, and therefore it would not require kibbutz? At the moment that the dam fell on the beged, akati kosher hava. The dam was still kosher. Hava psul dam uteinas kibbutz lebeged boim kech. The dam becoming tame and the requirement to wash the beged occurs simultaneously. Kedemafarish also Rav Huna Bered Rabbi Yeshua, as Rav Huna Bered Rabbi Yeshua is going to elaborate. Omar Rav Huna Bered Rabbi Yeshua, midikami boyelehachi, from the mere fact that Rami Bar Chama is even suggesting a shayla like this, Shemami Noah, hoysalo shas hakosher v'nivsala ein dama ton kibbutz. If you hold like Rabbi Kiva, that once the dam has a shas kosher, even if it becomes possible later, it's still ton kibbutz, then this whole shaila is not relevant because it had a shas kosher. This dam, it was tar before it touched the beged. So it must be that even if it has a shas kosher, it doesn't matter. If when it goes on the beged, it's possible blood, then this shaila makes sense. Because the shaila is, do you say hanamili b'zeh? When do you say that it doesn't need kibbutz? That's at first it became possible, and then it touched the beged. If it became tamei possible, b'vas when it gets on the beged, loy, maybe there we would say that it does need kibbutz, or maybe it doesn't make a difference. So that was the shaila that Rami Bar Chama asked of Reb Chisda. Omar lay, so this is what Reb Chisda answered. It's a little complicated. This is a plukta de Rebbe Lezer Rabbanan. This will be a machloikis. Your shaila of if it's bevasachas, is it considered like it was talking before? Is going to be totally the machloikis of Rebbe Lezer Rabbanan. Aliba de Rabba, the way Rabba understood the machloikis, ude kam mitayr it's Abaye, and the way Abaye was mitayr, it's Rabba's understanding of a Lezer Rabbanan. So when you read such an introduction to Gemara, you think, oh, today is going to be a hard day already. But really, what we're going to find out in a minute is that Rabbah had a suggestion as to how to understand the Machlokes of Lezer Rabbanan, which Abaye slugged up. And Abaye has a pshat in the Machlokes of Lezer Rabbanan. And basically, the Gemara is going to show us that the way Abaye understood the Machlokes of Lezer Rabbanan, this shaila will be precisely that. B'vasachas, do you say it's like it became tamei first? So it won't be complicated at all. So the first question is, if it's Abaye's pshat and not Rabba's pshat, why does it Gemara present it as if Abaye is explaining Rabba's pshat? So So Rashi tells us because Abaye was a Talmud of Rabbah, and to say it's Abaye's pshat in the Gnor Rabbah, it's nicer to wrap it and present it like this is how Abaye explained Rabbah. It's like when a guy asks his Rebbe a stupid question, and his Rebbe says, "Oh, you probably mean to ask," and he speaks out of Kivikas Kasha. So the smarter students will say, "Yeah, that's what I meant." The dumber students will say, "No, I didn't mean that." Okay, so Zok to Gemara, the Tanya Rebbe Lazar Aimer, Mechatos. Now we're switching gears, and we're not talking about dam anymore. We're talking about the water for the paradum. So you have water with ash from the paraduma. Shenitmu, that became tummy. It touched the shirts. Does that disqualify the water of the paraduma? Zok Rebbe Lazar Matayrin. It's not a problem. Even if the water, the Efer and the water of the paraduma became tummy, that does not remove its qualities to be able to be matayr somebody from tumas meis. Zok Rebbe Lazar, and I could prove it too. Sharei nida mazin aleha. A nida requires tefillah after her yumei nida. Yet, if she's also a tamei meis, a tamei meis, the Efer Paraduma can be sprayed on her, and it will work. And then when she goes to the mikvah at the end of her Yemei Nida, that mikvah will also be the final step in her tahira from the Tumas Meis. So you see that the Hazah works even if there's a Nida being spritzed. Now let's think about it. When the water hits the Nida, bivasachas, that water becomes tummy. Or maybe it becomes tummy even before. So let's have a look. Sharinida maznala. That was Rabbi Elazar's raya. The Amar Rabba, and Rabbi said, "Let me explain to you what Rabbi Elazar's raya is. It's not because the water of the nida, the water of the paraduma becomes tummy simultaneously when it touches her. That would make it the same shayla as our shayla, but that's not what Rabbi says. Rabbi says." Rabbi Elazar b'shidus Rabbi Kiva Rabbi Amra the Amar Havaras Kli al Mokim Tamai Kamunachtam. Rabbi Kiva, the Rebbe of Rabbi Elazar, holds that if I have the water of a paraduma and it's above a Mokim Tumah, even though it's not, it's in the airspace above the Mokim Tumah, we look at it as if it's already on the Mokim Tumah. So therefore, if there's water that's about to hit a nida that's tamei, we look at the water as if it's tamei already. So therefore, Zok Rabbi Elazar, based on Rabbi Kiva Shita, the water didn't become tamei when it hit the nida simultaneously with being matayr. The water became tamei before it hit the nida, because he holds over Rabbi Kiva, who holds avaras kli al gabe makam tamei kamunach tamei. So ebazoi, this is exactly as if it became tamei before. Because the Mei Paraduma, as it's in its trajectory to hit the Nida, we look at it as if it touched the Nida already. It's now Tamei, yet it still works. So you have a raya that Mechata Shenitmu is Matayer. Where did Rabbi Kiva say this halacha? What happens if you have a tanner that's Tamei, that has a sheretz inside it? Now you're standing in front of the tanner. The tanner's up against the wall, and right above the tanner on the wall is a windowsill. And on the windowsill, there's a little jug that has mei paradu. Now you reach over the oven to the windowsill, and you take that jug and you bring it towards yourself. You're passing over the airspace of an oven that's tamei. So you reached over the oven and you took a lagin, but not a lagin, you took a jug that was sitting there on the windowsill and you pulled it to yourself. And in the process, it passed over the airspace of the tanner. The Avira al Pia tanner, Rabbi Kiva Matame. Rabbi Kiva holds merely being in the airspace above the tanner Tame makes the Mechatos Tame. So based on Rabbi Kiva Shita, when you're spritzing dam, when you're spritzing Mechatos, on the Nida, as it's in its projectile, it's going to hit the Nida. We look at it like it's above the airspace of the Nida. And therefore, it becomes tummy while it's airborne, and then it's tummy and it hits her. The fact that it's metahir is proof positive that even if mechatas is Tomei, it still is effective. That was Rabba's Raya. The Chachamim say there's no such chumrah that just because it's in its airspace, hovering above, passing over above, it becomes Tomei. And this is how Rabba understood the machloikis between Rabbi Kiva and the Rabbanan. The Rabbi Kiva savar kamunach Tomei. Rabbi Kiva says when something is in the airspace of a davar Tomei, we treat it like it's kamunach. Of course, this is a chumrah legabe the halacha of mechatas. For Rabbanan Savri, lav kamunach Tomei. And the Rabbanan hold that we don't look at it as if it's kamunach. Now, we just have to pause for a second just to get through some technicalities. If you hold, which is what Rabbi is going to understand, Rabbi Lazar, if you hold that even though the mechatos is tamei, it's still effective, then who cares if it's tamei or not? Why is there even a discussion if it's tamei? We hold if it's tamei, it's effective. So exactly what's the halacha lemaisa component of Rabbi Kiva and the Rabbanan? They're arguing if the mechatos is tamei. But if mechatos is tamei, can work anyway, so what's the whole discussion? Sorry? Yeah, you have a right, but lemaisa, what's Rabbi Kiva and the Chum arguing about? You talk have a raya that mechatos as tamei works, but then why is Rabbi Kiva and the Chum arguing? It's just an academic discussion. So he brings down from the Achrayim that if it's already mixed with the ashes and now it's ready to be spritzed, that's where we'll say even if it became tamei, it will remain effective. But what if you just had the mayim chayim you didn't put the ashes into? That if it became tamei would be disqualified. So Rabbi Kiva and the Rabbanan might be arguing where it will have an impact before the mechatos. But what's the difference? Once Rabbi Kiva expresses that something that's in the airspace is as if it's on the space itself, well, then that should apply equally to pure water, mayim chayim, and water that's mixed with ashes. It should still be considered tamei, and based on that, since if you spritzed a nida, it's effective, you have a raya that even mechatos that was tamei is effective. Okay. That was how Rabbah learned Pshat. Now, based on how Rabbah learned Pshat, you don't have any raya to our shaila. Our shaila is, if it's bevasachas, do you look at it like it came tummy before it touched? That's not the shaila over here. It's clearly whether or not it became tummy before. But Abaye didn't like Rabbah's Pshat in the machloikis between Rabbi Kiva and the Chachamim, and he slugs it up. Abaye had a kash on his Rebbe. Moide Rabbi Kiva b'hazah shehavira al gabe klicheres Tomei, Agabe Mishka B'Moshev Tomei, Shehi Torah. Rabbi Kiva said, even though when I'm holding a jug of mechatos in my hand and I'm bringing it towards myself and I pass over a place that's Tomei, there I hold it's Tomei. But if it's a trajectory, if I spritzed and now the water is airborne on the trajectory to hit something and in its path it travels over a klicheres Tomei, or a mishka of a moshev tamei, that will not have the impact of being metamet. So the question is, they're both in the airspace. What's the difference if I'm spritzing and you have an airborne particle of water going over the airspace, or if I'm physically holding it and putting it over the airspace? Zokt the heilige Gemara, she'ein lach dover shemetame l'mayla kelamata, the only thing that actually projects its tumah up and down, and anything else that's metame ba'oil li'isuya even hamanugas. But a kli cheres that has tuma inside it, that doesn't project its tuma up. So the question now is, what is the distinction? What's the difference between the case of Rabbi Kiva, where I'm taking a bottle of water over the airspace, versus when I'm shooting zrikas hamayim and the trajectory of water passes over the airspace? I'll explain to you what this is all about. Everybody holds that when you have something that's airborne and it travels over a mokum tamei, you don't look at it like it's in the mokum tamei itself. So why is there a problem with the jug that I took in my hand and I passed it over a mokum tamei? Let me tell you why Rabbi Kiva said that it was tamei when you were pulling this jug. Rabbi Kiva savar gazrina shema yanuach. It's an extra gzera by mechatos that if you're holding a jug of water in your hand and you pass it over a mokum tumah, we're afraid you're going to put it down. If you shot it in a projectile, you've already lost control over it. It's going to continue on its path. You can't stop it. But if it's in your hand, you could technically decide now you want to take a rest and put it down. So therefore, Rabbi Kiva Sovar Gazrin Shema Yenuach, for Rabbanan Tzavi, Loi Gazrinam. But Rabbi Kiva B'Hazoya, but when you spritz it and it's already airborne in a trajectory, Kiva de Nafak Nafak. Once it left your hand, how are you going to make it land suddenly? It's going to remain. So we don't look at the airspace of something as if it's in there. No, it's a separate gzeira. If you're holding something in your hand above a makam tumah, we're worried you might put it down and place it in the makam tumah, and therefore Rabbi Kiva is machem. Okay, so now this machlokes has nothing to do with Rabbi Lezer and the Rabbanan about whether or not you have a raya from Nida, that even though the mechatos is tomei, it's still effective. So why is there a machlokes? There is a machlokes between Rabbi Lezer and the Rabbanan whether or not you could bring a raya from Nida that mechatos that's tomei is still effective. What are they talking about? What are they arguing about? Rabbi Lezer Rabbanan b'ma'ka b'vuli Amar Abaye b'danin tuma keduma mituma sheba'oisa shah kamifli. Do you say that if the water becomes tamei b'basachas when it hits the nida, do we consider it as if that was tamei before? Which is precisely the shaila of Rabbi Bar Chama. When the dam hit the beged tamei, do you say it's as if it became tamei before it hit the beged and then it doesn't need kibbutz, or do you say it only became tamei when it hit the beged and therefore it will require kibbutz? And that is exactly what we're talking about according to Abaye's understanding. The machlokes between Rabbi Lezer and the Rabbanan as to whether or not you have a raya from Nida that mechatos tmeya works will be the exact shaila of Rami Bar Chama. Mar Sarver Danin and Mar Sarver Ein Danin. So that is all the Gemara meant before. That's what the Chisda meant. The way Abaye understood the machlokes Rabbi Lezer and the Rabbanan is exactly our shaila. Bibalta became tamei when it hits the Nida. Do you look at it like it was tamei before? Who in our case, Bibalta dam became tamei when it hits the beged? Do you look at it like it was tamei before? Simple enough. Rava Amar, the Chula Alma Ein Danim. Rava says everybody holds. You don't look at it like it was tamei before. So what is the machlokes Rabbi Lezer and the Rabbanan? What do you have? If you don't look at it like it was tamei before, then everybody should hold that you should have a. Then everybody should hold that. If you don't look at it as tamei before, then you don't have a raya at all. Then everybody should hold that you don't have a raya from Nida that mechatos that's tamei will work. But I'll tell you why Rabbi Lezer holds is still a raya from Nida. Rabbi Lezer Savar Hazah Tzricha Shir. This is a little fascinating. He's spritzing on the Nida. A tiny little amount of water hits the Nida first. That is not enough to be matar, because there's a certain minimum amount of water that has to hit her from the mechatos to make her tar from a tumas mace. The first drop that hits her is not enough. Now the first drop that hits her becomes tamei right away. The second drop is not tamei yet. It's still on its way to hit her. But the second drop on its own can't be matar either. It needs help of the first drop. And the first drop is tamei. So you actually have a case where the drop that's being matar is tamei even before it's matar. Because the first drop that hit her is not yet matar till it's joined by the second drop. But while it's waiting for the second drop, it became tamei already.
First drop is not as good.
I guess not. I guess that's a good point. Yeah. So it becomes tamei even though there's no shir hazaya. Well, it could be does need a shir, but maybe it's not as big a shir as how much you need to be matar. And I don't know what the shir is. So Rabbi Lezer Savar Hazah Tzarich Shir and umitztar from lazoyos, and you can have two drops that come in separately that will look at it as if they're combined to be matar her. Rabban Savri Hazah Ein Tzricha Shir. So let's have a look at how Rashi puts everything, packages everything very nicely, and then we'll have to think a little bit about halacha l'maisa. Zoknu d'chula ma'in dan. Rava holds, everybody holds that you don't look at it like it was b'vasachas. Rabbi Lezer tumba keduma mituma keduma yalef. Rabbi Lezer's raya from Nida is not because he holds b'vasachas. It's as if it was tamei before. No, Rabbi Lezer holds we're talking about an actual case where the droplet of mayim chayim became tamei even before it was matar. Why? Rabbi Elazar sover azot shrichashir. Rabbi Elazar holds the first drop is not going to be enough to be matar. It needs to be joined with the next drop that's still coming. And you can be mitzaref the second drop to join the first drop. When she got hit with the first drop, akati lav azahu l'tahira. It's not enough to be matar, but it's still there, and it became tamei once it touched her. Even though in a moment it touched her, it became tamei. Now it's tamei water waiting to join its friend that's going to come that will be tar, and together they're going to be matar. So you have water that was tamei prior to being matar. Alma, what do you see from here? Here it's mamish tamei moments before the hazah was effective to be matar, yet it's still matar. So you have a raya, of a klor raya, that even mechatos that's tamei could be matar. For abundance over enazar shir, and therefore it must be umeyazah kamaisas talkalazah. Her, the very first little drop must be matar, and therefore that came by basachas the lekala melech bina tuma keduma the hach the gabenida tuma shabaisha. When the mechatos hit the nida, it made her tar instantly while it became tamei. You don't have any raya to a case where the mechatos was actually tamei before. So, the way Rava learns, it seems that everybody holds ein donin. What does ein donin mean? Ein donin means you don't look at it as if it was tamei before. So if you don't look at it like it was tamei before, then in our case, with the dam hitting the beged, if you don't look at it like it was tamei before, the beged should require kibbutz, right? That's based on Rava's understanding. Based on Abayi's understanding, it's going to be totally in the machlokes Rabbi Elazar and the Rabbanan, right? Where Rabbi Elazar holds it's metaher. Why does Rabbi Elazar hold that's metaher? Is because he holds by the mainida you look at it like it was tamei before, but the Rabbanan hold you don't look at it like it was tamei before. So, according to Abaye, Rabbi Elazar is a shachit. The Rabbanan is the Rabbim, and the Rabbanan would hold that you look at you look at it like it was tar until it hit. So, Sai, according to the Rabbanan in Abaye's understanding, and according to everybody in Rava's understanding, this beged that got dam on it should require kibbutz, because you don't look at it like it was tamei before. So the pashtus of the halach should be it doesn't need kibbutz. The problem is the Rambam holds it does need kibbutz, which seems like it's completely contradictory to our Gemara. That will leave for the Mefarshei Rambam, but that's the hack on the sugya. Pashtus from the maskana of our sugya, it seems quite clearly that we look at it like the dam was tahar until it hit the beged, and therefore the beged should require kibbutz. Why does the Rambam paskin that it doesn't? Zok to Gemara weiter. Zok to Gemara weiter. The next sugya, now it's all simple stuff. Chatos psula. We said if the chatos is possible, then it would not, its dam would not require kibbutz. Tanu Rabbanan midama. It says Vasher Yuza midama al beged. Midama means some dam, not all dam. Midam ksheira v'lo midam psula. Rabbi Kiva said, and we briefly touched on his shita earlier, even though he's inconsistent with our Mishnah, and he holds Haizala Shasa Kosher v'nifsala dama ton kibos. Lo Haizala Shasa Kosher v'nifsala then ein dama ton kibos. Rabbi Kiva holds even if the dam was tamei, but if at one point it wasn't, if at one point it was royal as rika, it will need kibos no matter what. Rabbi Shimon Omer echadza v'echadza ein dama ton kibos. If it's tamei, it doesn't need kibos, which is consistent with our Mishnah. My time with Rabbi Shimon ksiv oisa uksiv midama. There's two miyut. Chad lahecha the hoisa lo shasa kosher. The chad lahecha the lo hoisa lo shasa kosher is what this little letter points to the shita who adds that in. Rabbi Kiva oisa is not lemute if it had a shasa kosher. It's lemuta prakla truma. Truma that gets on the beggar doesn't have to be washed out. No, it does not, because even if the dam, the carbon was puzzle, would it hit the beged, as long as that there was a point in time prior to this that everything was going well, it will still require kibbutz. But if truma gets on the beged, it doesn't require kibbutz. And he uses Oisah to tell us that. For Rab Shimon, who doesn't need Oisah to tell us that, l'tamei damar kadashim kalim ein tu'unim meriko shtiva v'chol shekein truma. Never mind truma, even kadashim kalim doesn't have this halacha. But Rabbi Kiva holds that kadashim kalim does have this halacha. He also applies to all karbanos. Remember, Rabbi Kiva holds this applies to all karbanos, not just to achatos, and therefore he needs a limit to tell us that it doesn't apply to truma. But according to Rabbi Shimon, it's an exclusive halacha by chatos. So why would you think it would apply to truma? I don't need a limit. Zok to Gemara Vater. What happens if it's nitas minatzaver ala beged? Now we know in order for a dam to become royal uzrika, it has to be first received in a keli. This wasn't. It spritzed straight from the neck of the animal on a beged. Einoi ton kibus, because that didn't even have a shasa kosher. Minakernu mina yisoid. What if you already spritzed it, and then after you spritzed it, it splashed off the keren and the yisoid, and it went on a beged? Again, einoi ton kibus. Only dam that's royal lizrika. Nishbach ala ritzba va'asvoi. What if the dam spilled on the floor before it was niskabel in a klicheres, in a mizrak? I'm sorry, before it was niskabel in a mizrak, which means this dam will never be royal lizrika. Ein ton kibus. The rule is ein ton kibus elo dam sheniskabel b'kli v'royal la'azoya. And all of the three examples listed earlier in the Mishnah do not qualify, don't meet the specifications of that rule. Taner Rabbanan, Yochal nitas minatar bala beged ye ton kibus. You would have thought it needs kibus. Tabedoimer asher yazeh, dam that's going to be spritzed. Le'marti loch elo b'roy lazah. Tan yidach Yochal nitas minaker nimne yesoid ye ton kibus. Tabedoimer asher yazeh prat lazeshek farhusa. It has to be dam that's going to be spritzed, not dam that's already expired, that was spritzed already, nor dam that's not yet ready to be spritzed. Sorry?
Dirty.
I'll sustain in the beged. That's different story. Didn't we learn that you don't wash out the god? Any beged that gets dirty that needs detergent, you don't wash. You throw it out because ain't aniyas b'makam ashiras. But if it had dam of achatos, then you have to wash it out, not because you're going to use it. You can't use it anyway, but you have to wash it out. So you're washing it out and you're still not using it. Zog to Gemara weiter. But it's Geniza, I don't know, you bury it, I'm not sure. Nishbach ala ritzba. What if the dam got poured on the floor, meaning it's never going to be royal? Zrika, Zog to Helig Gemara. Hasulamali, I don't understand. Once it tells us that, once the Mishnah tells us that the only type of dam that will have this halach of kibbutz is dam that was niskabel nekeli. Why do I need the Mishnah to list off all these details? This doesn't qualify, that doesn't qualify. I know the rule. Hasulamali. So the rule was just explaining the reason for these three individual cases. Matam kamar. Matam nishbach ala ritzvah va'asboy ain't on kibbutz. Lefi she'ain ton kibbutz elodam sheniskabel b'kli v'roy lazoya. So it's not like the last line was a halacha, and therefore why do I need all the other halachas? The last line is the explanation for the three prior halachas mentioned in the Mishnah. Roy lazoya lemutemai. What's not roy lazoya? Lemute kibel pachos michdei azah b'chlizeh upachos michdei azoya b'chlizeh. Never mind dam that's b'chlama roy, you go straight on the floor. But even if I had dam that was niskabel in a klisharis, but not all of the dam, not enough dam to be able to do his rika with, was niskabel in one klisharis. Rather, the dam was niskabel in two separate klisharis. That dam is also not considered royal hazoya. The Tanya Rabbi Chalafta Bar Shol Omer, Kidesh Pachus Michtei Hazoya. Now, Rabbi Chalafta is not talking about dam. He is once again talking about mechatos. And you see, this is the second time today where the Gemara draws a parallel between mechatos and dam. So Kiddush Pachos Mechtei Hazoya Bechliza, Upachos Mechtei Hazoya Bechliza, Loi Kiddush. That would not work. So you had a little bit of water here, a little bit of water there, and you put a little ashes there and a little ashes there. This is not called mechatos. Iboilu, b'dam mahu. The same halacha that Reb Chalafta taught us by mei para aduma, does that apply to dam, which is exactly what our discussion is. Zog to Gemara, do you say hilchasahi? Do you say the halacha that by para aduma it has to all be in one keli is a halacha l'Moshe Sinai, and we have a rule umahilchas aloi gaminon. If there's a halacha l'Moshe Sinai said lagabe mechatos, we do not draw parallels and we don't apply that to anything else, not to dam. Dilma, there's a reason for it by mechatos that's not a halacha l'Moshe Sinai. Dilma has my timer d'chsev v'taval b'mayim, b'mayim instead of b'mayim. V'taval b'mayim means just dip your finger in water, in any water. B'mayim means you should be toivel your finger in that water, the water that I was referencing earlier, which means it has to be water that's royal as rika. Meaning, if you have less than a shear of water, that's not proper water. So it had to be water that's royal as rika, meaning there's enough there before you're tovel b'mayim. So v'tovel b'mayim hakanami by the dam it says v'tovel b'dam. It doesn't say v'tovel it's by bidam. It's badam in that specific dam, meaning there had to be nashir. So the same svara where you knew it by mechatos should equally apply to dam. Zog to Gemara. So we have a shaila. What is the halacha by dam? Do you need to have a critical amount of dam in the keli or not? If you hold you need to have, then our Mishnah is beautiful. We're being mamayit kibel pachas b'chtei azor b'chlizeh u'pachas b'chtei azor b'chlizeh. Zog to Gemara Touch'nTumah. Damar b'zrika. Amar Rabbi Lozer. Isn't it funny that when we're talking about Zrika Saddam, it's Rabbi Zrika who has his opinion. Amar Rabbi Zrika, Amar Rabbi Lozer. Af b'dam loy kidesh. So he says, beferish, this requirement applies to dam as well. Amar Rava, Tanya we learned, v'toval, we're being medayik from the different words in the psukim that describe the Zrika Saddam. So it says v'toval as it's boy, v'loy misafei. Meaning, you have to have a reservoir of dam at the bottom that you could dip your finger into. You can't use your finger as a spatula and wipe dam off the sides of the keli. That's rule number one. Badam, ad sheyehei b'dam shir tefila meikare. You can't dip your finger in different kelim to get more dam on your finger. You have to dip your finger in a keli that had all the amount, enough dam to do this rika. And then it says, he's on. Min hadam asher betzpoi. Min adam tells you min adam shebeinyan. Now min adam shebeinyan, the Gemara is shortly going to elaborate upon. But what it means is, let's say you stick your finger in the dam and you spritz. There's still dam left on your finger. So could I go to the next karen because there's 4 karnos? No, that's also shiraim. I have to dip my finger in the keli and get more dam for every single karen. The itzrich, the lemichtiv badam. You need the pasuk of badam. The ikaz of rechamana v'toval. If it just said v'toval, havamina, that I can't use my finger as a spatula, but I would have still thought afal pi the lakashir tefila meikare. But who said I need to have deep enough dam to be a shir tefila? Because of rechamana badam. Because of rechamana badam, havamina fila mesapik. I could have thought that you don't have to dip it into the dam at the bottom of the keli, you could just wipe it off the side like a spatula. Because of Rachmana v'toval min hadam. Because of v'toval. So now you know why I need v'toval and we need badam. Why did it say min hadam? Shebe'inyan. Lamut himai. Amarava lamute shirayim shebe'etzpa. What if you still have extra dam on your finger? Could you do the second hazaya with it? No. Misayeya l'Rabbi Lozer. Damar Rabbi Lozer shirayim shebe'etzpa are psulim. So Rabbi Lozer said, Shiraim Shabbat Psulim, to be clear, that means if you had enough dam on your finger to do 2 zrikas, you still have to dip your finger in the dam again. Now the question is, we're also going to have to deal if the dam on your finger that you already spritzed with this psula, can't just dip your finger into other dam. You got to get rid of that dam, you got to get it off your finger, because you have to make sure that your zrika will be only from fresh dam. Amalei Ravin Barab Ada, let's look at the box version. Amalei Rav Adan Rabban by Rav Ada Rav Amram. Talmidai Omer, the Bachas goes, Talmidai, my Talmud told me in your name. Talmidai, Omar of Amram, my Talmidim quoted you as saying the following. Tanina, Hayamaza, what if he was spritzing? V'nitza hazah miyadoi, and the dam spritzed from his hand and it went on a beged. Achalo hisa, if he didn't yet spritz yet, meaning it's dam that's royu lizrika, it's destined lizrika ton kibus. That's a case where the beged that received that dam needs to be washed. But misha hisa, once you spritzed already, now this is a leftover dam, ain't ton kibus. Why? Because the dam on your finger is no longer royu lizrika. So my lot, how do we understand the pashtus of this memra? Hachikamar. As long as I still have more zrikas to do, the dam on my finger is still potent, and if it went on a baguette, it will require kibus. So So pashtus, what it means is not the moment I made one zrika, it's no longer ton kibus. The moment I'm finished, the entire zrika is required in this whole set. That's where we'll say that it's expired dam and it doesn't require kibbutz anymore. But if I'm in the middle of spritzing, even though I did one spritz, but I still have more spritzes to do, that is still potent dam that I can make zrika with. So that's a kasha on what you said, that shiraim sheba etzba is no longer royu to make zrika on. Zog to Gemara, you got it all wrong. Absolutely not. Loi, hachi gomer, achalo yotza zo miyoda, eton kibus. Mishi yotza zo miyoda, eton kibus. Once one hazoya leaves your finger, even though you have many other hazoyas to do, the dam on your finger is now shirayim. And that dam, if it went on a beged, it would not require kibus. Which is what we've been saying. Okay. So Eisvei Abaye. Gomer mila hazoyis. Now we're going back to doing zrika, the zrika sadam, after they shechted the par aduma, after they shechted the par aduma on harazesim, after they spritzed the par on harazesim, so they spritzed the dam towards the west, kenega dehecha. So it says gomer milahazois, when he finishes doing all of his rikas, mekaneach yodei begufa shel para, he wipes his hands off on the actual para, because it says you got to burn the whole par with its dam. So any dam that was on the finger of the coins got to be at part of this bonfire. So he wipes his finger off on the gufa par. But it says gomar in, loy gomar loy. It's mashma, you only have to wipe your finger off after you finish the whole set of azoyas. Based on what you're saying, that once you made one azoya, you have to dip your finger in the dam again, and you can't continue to use dam that's left over on your finger. So why would it be by gomer bilahadlish? You should have to do it after every single zrika. You should have to wipe your finger off on the animal. Zakta Gemara, no. Gomar, when he's completely finished all of his rikas, then he could be mechaneich yodeh begufo shopara. But loy gomar, he can't wipe his hands on the parah. You know why? Because his finger is wet. It's going to get full of hair. And now when he tries to make the second rika, it'll be disgusting. It'll be full of hair. So all of the previous wiping his fingers off have to be on a clean surface. So loy gomar mekanech etzboi, but on something else. But once he's done completely, he can wipe it off on the part. So look at boy, Bishlam Gamar, Mekanech Yode Begufishal Para, Shenemar Vesar Zapara Lainov. Everything has to be included, including any little dam has to be burnt with the paraduma. And let's boy b'may mekanech. What is he going to wipe his finger off before he's finished? Amar Abaye b'svas mizrak. Yeah, he'll have to have a mizrak in which he was makabel the dam, and that's when he'll scrape his finger off and get the dam off of it, and then dip his finger in to get more dam for the next rika. Kedechsev kapoire is up. The reason why the mizrak was called kapoire is a lotion of cleaning. It's because he would also use the keli not only to hold them, but also to wipe his finger off on the rim to get rid of the extra blood between each srika. What if the dam didn't spritz on fabric, it spritzed on leather? If the animal is not skinned yet, so it's spritzed on the hide of the animal before the animal was skinned, once the animal was skinned already, we look at it like a tabeg, ton kibus. The Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Lazar, no, af misha hovshat ein ton kibus. even once the animal is skinned and the skin is there, but it's not completely processed, that's still not called a beged, and it wouldn't need kibus. Now, when you do need kibus, you don't have to wash the whole beged. You only have to spot clean. Elamakam hadam, only where the stain is. Vidavar shahuroyu lekabel tumah. It's only on a beged that could be makabel tumah, and v'royu lekibus, and the type of beged that could be washed, not something that you just scrape it off. It has to be something where it needs to be laundered. Echad ha-beged ve'echad ha-sak ve'echad ha-or, any type of medium to unin kibos. Where does the washing machine have to be? V'akibos b'makom kodesh. You need to have the washing done in the azara. So they must have had like a little laundry mat in the azara. Ushaviris klicheres, we know that any klicheres in which you cooked the korban chatos, the pasuk is yishaver. That also has to occur to Makom Kodesh, and that you have to make hagala and wash out kalim that you used for the chatos, also b'makom kodesh. So they had a kashering kitchen in the azara, they had a laundry machine in the azara, and they had a pile of broken cheres in the azara. Because kachim that became possible. Where do you burn them? Out of the azara. But these items need to be burned in the azara. How do we know this? The Tanu Rabbanon. Beged, only a beged, minayin l'rabbis or mishuhuvshat. How do we know that it also includes a hide? Of course, once it's removed from the body, whatever you spritz on, you have to wash out, even including hide. Or achalohuvshat. Maybe it also includes hide even before it was skinned. Beged, ma beged, haroyu l'kabel tumah. Just like a beged is royu to be makabel tumah. I've called haroyu l'kabel tumah. So to anything that's royu l'kabel tumah, meaning even if I have a hide that had not yet been processed, but since it's royu l'kabel tumah, once it's going to be processed or designated as a beged, it's already enough to be considered a beged that needs to be washed out. Div Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Elazar Omer beged enli beged minayin l'rabbi sak v'chol minei begadim and all different types of begadim. Rabbi Elazar asher aleh t'chabes. Okay, let's stop here because this machlok is Rabbi Elazar and the Chachamim. And Rabbi Yehuda, it requires a little bit of explanation. We'll get to that tomorrow. Everyone should have a good bench today.